I'm an oncology chaplain at the Sims-Mann UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. I had a breast cancer patient recently named Julie, who seemed to live life in a deep and reflective way, describes herself as spiritual, not religious. She was telling me about her husband, whom she described as a good, solid, loving guy. What matters most to him in life, I asked. Money, she said, a little too quickly. With a flash of her eye, it was as if she wanted to take that back, thinking she had perhaps betrayed him in letting that slip out. It was important to her that I know what a good guy he was. Well, I said, it sounds like maybe he just doesn't get the magic in life. That's it exactly, she said. He doesn't get the magic. I think we both knew exactly what we were talking about, but would be hard-pressed to articulate it any more precisely than that. 2 or 3 careers ago, I was a professional dancer. One of my last jobs was touring the country in 1979 with the late magician, Doug Henning. Maybe some of you remember Doug. He was sort of the latter-day vaudeville staple of magician, but shot through the lens of sugar-coated hippie culture and sequins and rainbows. Doug was passionate about his work, and he saw it through a spiritual lens. He was a devotee of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, a student of transcendental meditation. And for Doug, the state of wonder was a sacred state. And he saw his work, though as fake as snake oil, as a portal into that sacred state. The experience of wonder was something genuine and authentic, for the audience, anyway. My mom is 85 years old, and like Julie, she lives life in a deep and reflective way. As the end of her life draws nearer, she finds herself wanting answers to all those big questions in life with greater urgency. All the whys, with a capital W. On her 82nd birthday, she and I took the most lovely walk on the bluffs overlooking the wetlands of Morro Bay near where she lives. And we were chatting and chewing on all of those big questions and of our desire to know answers. And it occurred to me, Mom, maybe in this life, in this go-around, we can only be in the audience. Maybe it's magic, and maybe it's not. And maybe there's a magician, and maybe there's not. But for my mom, as it is for Julie, and as it is for me, the experience of magic is something very real. But what is it? I have a breast cancer patient, Carlene, who takes an art therapy class, and she was telling me that one week the facilitator of the class just gave a 1-sentence direction: draw a map. So Carlene chose to draw a map of cancer. Over here's the land of diagnosis, over here's the land of sadness, over here's the land of chemotherapy. I loved the idea of that. And it made me think, what might a map of magic look like? And I came up with 3 lands on my map. Now this is deeply personal, not remotely scientific, and anything but complete, but the more I think about it, it kind of works for me. And the 3 lands on my map are the land of synchronicity, the land of scale, and the land of vulnerability. Synchronicity. I have a colleague, Sharon, who for years has studied under a particular rabbi who posits the notion that perhaps our whole life's purpose and mission might be fulfilled, realized in one 5-minute conversation, one chance encounter with a stranger, perhaps. At first, I categorically dismissed this idea because it's so damn deflating, given all of the energy I expend on everything that I think is so important. But the more I reflect on all those synchronicities in my own life, and in the lives of the patients I serve, momentary synchronicities that are game changers, really, well, the idea gives me some pause. Carl was a newly diagnosed lymphoma patient in the infusion clinic, and I introduced myself to him and his family a few years ago. He was there with his wife, Donna, and their adult granddaughter. The tension between the 3 of them was palpable. As it turns out, there was a long family history of betrayal and anger and resentment, and of the 3, Donna seemed to be wound particularly tight. As a chaplain, it was hard to know where to put my attention because each one seemed so isolated in his own suffering. So I just did my best, and I listened. And after about an hour, I said a prayer, and I left. I never saw them again. A year later, Donna called the center where I work. She asked that I call her back. To tell you the truth, I didn't remember who she was. So I called her, and she said, Michael, I just want to thank you for changing our lives. You might have even saved them. Carl is doing just great. Our marriage has never been better, but I feel liberated from decades of anger, and it all started that day you came to see us in the clinic and said that beautiful prayer. I tell you, that day I was ready to jump out of my skin. I came so close to getting up out of that chair and walking out of the clinic and out of my life for good. I sat and I prayed to God for someone to hear me. 5 minutes later, you walked up. How about that? But there are some synchronicities that are so intricately woven that they perhaps are beyond the momentary game changer. They give us a glimpse, perhaps, into the mystical. I had such an experience a few years ago. Well over 30 years ago, during my dancing days, I was touring with a particular musical artist who had 3 backup singers. And one of those singers, Jenny, had a blind husband, I remember. I'd never met the husband, I just remember being struck by that circumstance. And I was particularly friendly with another of the singers, Sarah, but as it is in life and show business, after the tour, we drifted apart and lost touch. 30 years later, I'm at a concert at the Music Center in downtown Los Angeles. I'm coming out of the men's room and in walks a blind man. Somehow I knew it was Jenny's husband. I don't know how I knew. I offered to give him some help with the doors, and he gratefully accepted. And I offered to wait for him to see if he needed help getting back out to the lobby. That'd be great, he said. How'd you like the concert? I asked. Oh, I just loved it. My wife's a singer and I'm a musician myself. Is your wife Jenny, by chance? How did you know? I don't know how I knew. Is she here? Yeah, she's up in the lobby. So I get him out to the lobby. I have a mini 30-year reunion with Jenny. I ask her if she ever sees Sarah anymore. All the time, she says. Well, here's my number. Would you have her give me a call? I would just love to catch up with her. So a week or so goes by. Sarah calls me. Michael, what are you doing these days? You are never going to believe it, Sarah. I'm a hospital chaplain. She sighed so heavily. Oh, gosh. My sister really needs a chaplain right now. She's got cancer, and she's at UCLA on the 10th floor right now. That was my hospital. That was my floor. I had already introduced myself to her sister, but she turned me down for a visit. Now I had an entree to get back into the room. Hey, I'm Sarah's friend. How about that? Some coincidence, huh? Actually, it strains the limits of my rational mind to write that off to mere coincidence. Paradoxically, it makes more sense to me that there are powers or principles beyond my imagining to explain so many disparate elements fitting together over the span of 30 years. In any event, the intricate fit of that puzzle fills me with a profound sense of magic. The second land on my map of magic is the land of scale. So much in our culture, it would seem, seems to be about growth. Being, doing, having more, better, different. Even for those of us who might reject more consumerist notions of success, we still want to do more for our families, our communities, for social justice. What I have found, though, is that when I experience magic, it gets revealed to me not when I am enlarged, but when I am diminished, or even when I disappear altogether. In the mid-1980s, I was ensnared in a pretty deep, debilitating depression, and in spring of 1985, I decided to take a trip by myself up to Yosemite to do some hiking for a few days, looking for some kind of inspiration or sense of renewal. I cannot put this strongly enough. The place gave me my life back. 3,000 feet of granite on the face of El Capitan, the majesty of Yosemite Falls bursting in the spring, the delicate beauty of those dogwoods opening in the sunlight, the sheer grandeur of those giant sequoias in the Mariposa Grove. Maybe it was a glimpse into the eternal, I don't know. I know it was a glimpse of my own insignificance, and there's healing power in that. But the key element of the experience is the element of scale. A few years ago, I was flying home from somewhere. I looked out the window, and there was Half Dome down there. Hey, that's Yosemite down there. There was no announcement from the pilot. What's more, there was no stirring in my heart whatsoever to spy what looked like an inconsequential crack in a rock on the back of the Sierra Nevada. And this left me startlingly sad. Hey, wait a minute, that place had enough power to give me my life back. And from this vantage point, it's nothing more than a crack in a rock. So does that mean that my healing was somehow synthetic or manufactured, like some spiritual trompe l'oeil, a trick of the eye? What if it was? Even if it was, I would take it. And I would choose to move my life intentionally in those directions where I could be swallowed up into that kind of awe again and again, much like someone who might plunk down their hard-earned money to be knowingly fooled into a state of wonder by a magician like Doug Henning. I think that's some of the pull of this career of chaplaincy for me, to stand amidst such groundlessness and powerlessness, to be a witness to something as inconceivably huge as death. Life, on one hand, is kind of knowable. Death, that's another story. But the doorway of inspiration in this realm swings both ways, not just from the direction of from where I am to the grand, but from where I am to the even less significant. I can't tell you how many patients find meaning in the most insignificant details of life. Sometimes I think the more inconsequential the detail, the clearer the looking glass is into the profound. Esther has a very advanced colon cancer, and she's going through a very aggressive chemotherapy to hopefully shrink her tumors enough to have surgery to resect her colon. She's got a very long road ahead of her. One Monday morning in the clinic, I went to see her, and she was so distressed and tearful, and she told me what a rough week it had been. Michael, I've been so scared. And when I get that kind of stress and that kind of fear, I go into this hyper-vigilant cleaning and organizing mode. I must have hit every drawer and cabinet and closet in the house like it was the end of the world or something. I drove everybody crazy. The dog's crazy. I drove the kids crazy. Drove my husband Frank crazy. Of course, a part of me wanted to say, girl, if you're still in the mood, have I got a closet for you? She went on to tell me that she even made Frank get in the car with her and drive clear across town over to the Ralph supermarket by where she works so she could show him where they sell the precise pink lemonade that is our son Kyle's favorite, just in case I'm not here to get it for him. We both laughed and cried a little bit at the nuttiness of that story, and yet I found it so moving and beautiful, the love in the story. By her desire to control whatever she can into the future, come hell or high water, at least Kyle will have his pink lemonade. I'm moved by Frank's willingness to get in the car and schlep across town when I'm sure, in his view, babe, we got way bigger fish to fry here. I'm moved by all of that, but I'm also moved by the fumblings of our human journey and the capacity to find meaning in the teeniest of places. The third land on my map of magic is the land of vulnerability. So much in our culture would tell us to avoid vulnerability at all costs. Wear your seatbelt, lock your door, get an alarm, buy some insurance, don't drive in that part of town at night, don't talk to strangers, don't ask for help, and God, don't let anybody see you cry. From what I've observed, the magic in life gets revealed when we move in the opposite direction, toward our vulnerability. And if cancer is anything at all, it is a doorway into the land of the vulnerable on so many levels and in so many dimensions. Like all of us, so many patients are proud of their self-reliance and their independence, and they share with me what a struggle it is to need the help that cancer demands. Needing it is one thing, and accepting it is quite another. And yet I hear from countless patients as they move toward that vulnerability and share the weight of their journey with others, that they experience this overwhelming outpouring of love, often from the unlikeliest of sources, and a kind of love that is magical, that restores one to a sense of interdependence and community. Only possible because of vulnerability. Only possible, perhaps, because of cancer. But as I say, needing help is one thing and accepting it is another. Ahmad was a very proud Lebanese man, a husband, a father, an engineer, end-stage liver cancer. The source of his spiritual crisis was the pain and suffering he was causing his family, or so he thought. Michael, he asked, do you think it's selfish of me to even get treatment, knowing how it will inconvenience my family? His wife and his son could only cry in astonishment to hear that. In their view, doing any little thing they could for Ahmad, be it help him to the toilet in the middle of the night or get him his meds or rub some lotion on his feet, those were blessings. Those were opportunities to do something to bring him some comfort. Doesn't he know we would do everything possible just to keep him with us as long as we can and to make him comfortable? On the other side of that fence sat Ahmad, thinking there was one way he could still be the provider and protector for his family. He could make his own funeral arrangements. His family wouldn't even begin to have that conversation. So there each of them sat with their own gift returned, unopened, on their laps. Just love, trying to get out and express itself. My mom is a lung cancer survivor herself, nearly 13 years out. In 2001, she underwent chemotherapy and surgery to remove a lobe of her lung. On December 31st that year, my sister Terry and I were hiking in the mountains above Idlewild and reflecting on what a momentous year that had been and what were the highlights of the year for us. And my sister got a little tearful and said, I think the highlight of my year was taking care of Mom after her surgery and wiping her behind. It doesn't get any smaller or more intimate, more vulnerable, for most of us probably more horrifying than that. And yet it was the highlight of my sister's year. The crazy places we find magic, huh? Like my mom, I would simply love to have answers to all those big questions in life. Why do we have to go through what we go through? Why do we have to lose everything we will ever love? Who wouldn't want those answers? But the more I think about it, I think Doug Henning was really onto something, because I also know the blessing that is to be found in the experience of magic. That's where the goodies in life are. So I suppose I will give up my delusions that I really know anything at all, or that I'm smart enough to figure it out, just for the chance to experience more of that. More magic, more wonder, more love. After all, now I've even got a map to show me the way.